Welcome to Wealth Roadmap with Jeff and Steve, your guide to simplifying wealth management. Join us as we explore financial planning, taxes, investments, insurance, and legal frameworks to help you secure your financial future. Hello, everybody. My name is Jeff Costello. Welcome back to the Wealth Roadmap podcast with Jeff and Steve. It's been a minute since we recorded our last episode. This is going to be episode 12. We had some hiccups with technology, but we pushed through. So welcome back, Steve.
Welcome back, Jeff. It's great to see you, even though I've
Yep.
seen you before. But welcome, everyone. It's a pleasure.
So today we're going to talk about beneficiaries. We often get asked, what's the difference between primary, between contingent, between all these different types of beneficiary designations. And, this is really applicable to if you have an investment account. Usually they're going to ask you to fill out who you want that money to be left to. And it's important that you list your beneficiary. Otherwise, it's going to default to your estate, and it just may take longer to get the money. It's going to be a headache. So it's way easier for you just to list your beneficiaries. So let's dive in. So Steve, I'm going to turn it over to you first. Tell me what a primary beneficiary is.
Well, and for those of you who are watching this, you can see it on the screen. It's live on the screen, right, Jeff? Because I can see it. I'm assuming everyone else can see it. But yeah, basically the two types, primary, contingent. So the primary, that's the person who's going to receive the assets when you do pass away. And you could have multiple primary beneficiaries by simply splitting out by percentage, right? So if there's two people, 50-50. If there's three people, you may have to give one person 1% extra, because typically you can't really do, you can't really do decimals. So keep that in mind. But the point is, however many primary beneficiaries that you want, you can have. It is your decision. Like Jeff mentioned, it's important, though, to make sure that that is listed. And these are going to be typically on your retirement accounts, the IRAs, 401ks, 403bs, etc., and on certain investment accounts that have a TOD, a transfer on death registration. You can also list beneficiaries on those types of accounts. So primary contingent is going to receive that money or the assets only if all the primary beneficiaries are deceased. Right. So again, if there's one primary beneficiary and that person passes away prior to you passing away, and then you pass away, it's going to go to the contingent beneficiary. So, one of the things you want to make sure is always updating or making sure you're reviewing your beneficiaries, doing a beneficiary review every few years or every couple years, just to make sure that you have the correct beneficiaries. And right, if you're kind of forward thinking and saying, well, wait a minute, if I have multiple beneficiaries and one passes away, how does that impact the contingent? How does that impact the primary beneficiaries? So Jeff, I think that kind of leads us into the next piece, which is how kind of you classify those beneficiaries on the accounts.
Yeah, and always remember that for the most part, you should be able to always change your beneficiaries with a simple form or going online, depending on the account. So if we're working with a lot of retirees, so what we'll see is, the spouse will list, if they have a retirement account, they'll list their other spouse as primary, and then maybe they'll list their children as contingent, right? Meaning that if, hey, my spouse isn't going to be around, all right, well, then, if something happens to us in an accident at the same time, then the contingent beneficiaries would receive the money. But in the event that whether it's primary or contingent, you should be able to have the opportunity to list your beneficiaries as per stirpes or per capita. And so if you're watching, this is a pretty good representation on how that works. So in this situation for per stirpes, you have Linda, and let's say she has 3 children, and she lists those 3 children as her primary beneficiary. We're not going to get into which child she likes more. Maybe John got 34%, Mary got 33%, and Bob got 33%. And something happens to Linda. She maybe never updated her beneficiary accounts, and John had predeceased her. Well, if she had per stirpes, the way that it would work is the 1/3 that was going to go to John would actually get broken up to John's estate, to Jason and Jill. So John's, portion that would have went to him now gets put into his kids' names, while Mary and Bob still receive the same 1/3 that they would have received whether John was around or not around. Now, with per capita, it works a little bit differently. Per capita, again, something happens, to Linda. Again, John in the same situation had predeceased her. Well, now instead of that money getting split into John's estate to Jason and Jill, like it did with per stirpes, now the money is divided evenly amongst the primary beneficiaries that are still alive. So now Mary and Bob are going to get 50% each as opposed to just the third. And so this can come into play, whether it's with children, with, different people that you may want to leave the money to, but it's always going to vary. And this is where you want to speak with your financial advisor to make sure that the correct beneficiary designations are elected and updated on your, annual review meetings. The last thing you want to do is having beneficiaries listed that are 10, 15 years old and might be outdated, right? I mean, we see that pretty frequently when it comes to people having outdated, beneficiaries.
Yeah, Jeff. No, you're right, and that, unfortunately too, right? Because ultimately that is upon your passing where you hope that the money goes. All right. So if it's not updated, it could cause people who you care about, who you love, who you wanted to be able to provide financial support to, it may not end up getting the money. And another thing too, just quick research. It's like, okay, per stirpes, what is that? What does that even mean? And I don't know if this is going to help or if this is going to make it more complicated. But sometimes just connecting it to a word helps. But so per stirpes is Latin. It means by branch. And so if you look on that, like Jeff mentioned, per stirpes by branch, think of it, well, if it's going by branch, then it's going to go, if you have per stirpes designation, then it's divided equally among your children. And then if that child predeceases you, their share goes to their descendants. It kind of branches down. And per capita, per capita, again, in Latin means by head. All right. So another way to maybe remember
Wow.
that is that way, right? So like you mentioned, Jeff, per head, it's going to go regardless if one of the beneficiaries predeceases you. If there's three there, right, John, Mary, and Bob, well, it doesn't matter for John's children. It's not going to impact them because it's by head, and so it goes to Mary and Bob. So maybe just another way to remember it, maybe not, but when you look at it, it kind of can get confusing because obviously it's Latin, not English.
And if
So
if you're interested in Latin, Steve's Latin podcast follows this. We're here to teach Steve's there to teach all Latin phrases, but the more you know. Yeah, I did not know that. So
yeah,
that's very interesting.
I
Um,
don't have a Latin podcast, so he's lying. So no, don't search for it.
all right, so yeah, so per stirpes again, per branch, and then obviously per capita goes based off the heads that are remaining. So the last one is which is very uncommon is 2 hairs per capita. And again, if you're watching, you can kind of see the visual representation of this where, if something were to happen to, again, John, the money then is split amongst all of the eligible beneficiaries that are alive, as well as John's um, estate. And again, this is something that's very uncommon. You're most likely going to see your designations being per stirpes or per capita, depending on which one is going to be more relevant to what your goals and wishes are with any money that you might be leaving behind.
Yeah, and just kind of give some examples, right, of when to review any major life events. Divorces are a big one, where you kind of forget about the beneficiaries, and it could still have your ex-spouse on the beneficiary or as the beneficiary. Whether it's typically it'll be the primary, especially if it's a 401k, right, Jeff? I guess most people with plans like that have to they're listing their spouse. So any type of major life events, divorce, or maybe you have another child or a child. You want to maybe
Especially old accounts. I think we see that a lot.
yeah.
Hey, I have this 401k. I haven't worked there in 15 years. Nothing's really been updated. It's been on kind of cruise control. And that's another reason why, and we did a podcast on this already, why it's so important to consolidate your old accounts, so that you can easily stay on top of your beneficiary designations. And you could just go to Google. You could see, there's been many different cases with a lot of, athletes and celebrities where, something happened. And, again, the new wife was thought that she was going to get the proceedings from investment accounts, but the beneficiary designations were never changed, and so it goes to court. And the beneficiary designation is going to trump anything that you put in your will. So just because you update your will doesn't mean that it's going to update on this side.
Great point. Great point. Yeah, and to that point, did you say this? I was maybe you did, maybe you didn't, but yeah, Trump's the will. I think you said that, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, it's gonna yeah,
yeah,
it's gonna trump the will. So that's why why you need to, update it. Make sure that you're reviewing it, on a consistent basis.
yeah, and even another best practice too is keeping. Of course, you want to submit it to the financial company, the custodian, or whoever. If you're working with an advisor, make sure that they get that to submit it to the proper channel. But keeping a record for yourself. One of the things, whether it's just like a Word document for the accounts that you have and the beneficiaries, that you sign off on, again, just to have, and make sure you keep that somewhere safe. One of the things that we often use for our clients that we have is we provide them with what's called the family estate organizer. Jeff, probably something we should talk about. But it's just a way to organize this family estate organizer. It's a binder, and it's a way to organize your estate, right? Especially as you get older, you accumulate a lot of stuff, a lot of things. Where is that? And it covers everything from passwords to websites to a key identification, right? Some people have keys and how to identify those keys, because again, if something happens to you and your spouse, if you have a spouse, what happens? Well, your beneficiaries or whoever you have as kind of who's going to handle your estate upon your passing is going to want to know where things are. And there are many times we have seen so many, and I, Jeff and I were just talking about this, so many instances where, something tragic happens and unfortunately things weren't all in one spot. Things weren't organized. So there's multiple accounts. There's, online portals, web
Yep.
passwords, usernames that the children have no idea where to go, where to look.
Yeah.
Not even like what accounts are where, and especially like you said, if you have many different accounts, you want to make sure that whoever that you're leaving money behind knows where things are or knows where to look to figure out where things go. And that's why this family state organizer that we provide, I think, helps. We've gotten a lot of good feedback because it gives our clients a comfort, peace of mind to know that if something happens to them, it's okay. The money that they have, the assets, and what they've accumulated, it's not going to get lost. And their children aren't going to have to spend time, money to try to figure out where everything is. So yeah, it
Yeah.
just kind of
Yeah.
came to me.
I mean, it's like, yeah, to plug in working with any financial advisor, even if there's some accounts that you're doing it yourself, you're doing your own trading, even if your advisor is aware and something happens, they can go to that other spouse that might not be so involved and tell them, hey, there was this account that so and so was, doing their own thing at E Trade or whatever it might be. But unfortunately, yeah, we've been on the other side of the table where a spouse comes to us and their other spouse was a do-it-yourselfer, and we're calling up old statements trying to figure out where the money was. So yeah, that's and so obviously once you find out that, hey, there is this account, then yeah, you're gonna want to hope that the beneficiary designations were properly structured. So again, when it comes to like the different types of beneficiaries, again, you have your primary, right? That's the money who the money is going to be left to. In the event that they're not around, you're going to have the contingent beneficiary, just to kind of step in there. And then depending on how you have it set up, whether it's per stirpes or per capita, that's something you want to work with your financial advisor on to make sure that everything is kind of, set up properly. So we hope that was a good, refresher. And again, you can do your own research or feel free to reach out to us with any questions.
Yeah, awesome, man.
Yeah. So, all right, guys. Well, we'll see you on the next podcast, and everyone enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you for joining us. If you enjoyed our podcast, don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave a comment on topics you'd like for us to cover on future episodes. We'll see you soon.
Financial planning and advisory services are offered through Prosperity Capital Advisors, PCA, an SEC-registered investment advisor with its principal place of business in the state of Ohio. One Team Financial LLC and PCA are separate, non-affiliated entities. PCA does not provide tax or legal advice. Insurance and tax services offered through One Team Financial LLC are not affiliated with PCA. Information received from this video should not be viewed as individual investment advice. Product discussions and illustrations are hypothetical in nature and will vary based on many factors, including but not limited to age, health, product, insurance carrier, and product design. You should consult the insurance carrier website and policy for detailed information. Content may have been created by a third party and was not written or created by a PCA-affiliated advisor and does not represent the views and opinions of PCA or its subsidiaries. For information pertaining to the registration status of PCA, please contact the firm or refer to the Investment Advisor Public Disclosure website. For additional information about PCA, including fees and services, send for our disclosure statement as set forth on Form ADV from PCA using the contact information herein. Please read the disclosure statement carefully before you invest or send money.